I have two very special guests today. They are both integral parts of what might be the most impactful camera design team in the world right now. John McCormack is Apple's Vice President, Camera and Photos Software Engineering, and Megan Nash is Apple's iPhone Product Manager. We got a ton of different updates this year to the iPhone camera system. Maybe the biggest across the board, because it was on the 17, the 17 Pro, and the brand new iPhone Air, is a huge update, a complete overhaul to the selfie camera system. And I was very glad to see it. It has never received this big of an update in just one generation, and it has really moved the needle on what users are able to do when they are pointing their phone at themselves. So maybe you guys can explain it better than me. What are those new features? How do they work? How did you think about designing them? And how are they going to benefit iPhone users?
Okay, thanks. So the new iPhone lineup this year completely reimagines the front camera experience with a new center stage front camera. It fundamentally changes the way we capture memories and communicate with loved ones. And so today, we just want to take you behind the scenes a little bit and talk about how we developed the center stage front camera and what it took to bring all of this to life. We know most people prefer to hold iPhone vertically, but we also know they want to get more friends and group shots and to take selfies with landmarks in the background. And just by observing how people actually use their iPhone out in the world, we noticed some really interesting things. We find people using workarounds to get the shots they want. Sometimes we see selfie sticks. We see folks switching to the 0.5x ultra-wide camera. We see folks rotating the iPhone to horizontal. Or we even see folks handing the phone to the tallest person in the group to get the best arm extension. Now, what's happening here is that people are trying to make the camera work for them. But we knew we could do better. So we asked ourselves, what if the camera could just understand what you're trying to capture and make those adjustments for you?
Megan, could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Like John said, we knew we wanted to help users fit more friends into their group selfies, so we needed more field of view. But with more field of view, you often get unwelcome distortion and poor image quality by spreading more pixels over the same silicon area. So with the center stage front camera, we grew the sensor to almost double the previous sensor size to match pixel for pixel sharpness. It's the exact same number of pixels per degree field of view as the previous front camera. So the result is a wider field of view to fit more people or background in the frame, and excellent image quality, really the best of both worlds. And the other big consideration with the sensor was the shape. Normally, smartphones use a rectangular 4:3 ratio sensor, but for the orientation agnostic experiences we wanted to create with the new center stage camera, we knew we needed to do something different. We decided to make the sensor square to enable these industry-first experiences. And square sensors aren't common in the industry. They're more expensive, they take up more silicon area, they take up more space in the device. Traditional cameras use a 4:3 sensor because they're designed primarily for photography. But we knew the iPhone front camera isn't just for photos anymore. It's about communication, content creation, and staying connected. And a square sensor means you can hold iPhone vertically and still capture landscape photos and videos. Enabling landscape selfies while holding iPhone vertically has several benefits. It's first of all more comfortable and secure, so you're less likely to drop your phone or get a blurry photo. And you'll notice the people in the photos have better eye gaze because the camera preview is centered with the front camera, rather than being off to the side when you rotate iPhone to horizontal. And landscape is often the optimal aspect ratio for group photos because people tend to line up in a shoulder-to-shoulder horizontal row. And with a larger sensor, you get more resolution, up to 18 megapixels, so you have even more options to crop and reframe. We also wanted to improve stabilization on the front camera. So we took some of the same hardware technology that enables action mode on the rear cameras and brought it to the front camera for the first time. The hardware stabilization uses a new closed loop control that senses and corrects the lens position in real time to stabilize the lens focus position even when it's subject to external vibration. And Apple Silicon supports these experiences too. I mentioned a minute ago that we almost doubled the sensor size with the center stage camera, so that is a lot more pixels and data to process. Actually, years in advance, we were thinking about how this new front camera will need the high-speed Apple camera interface. So A19 and A19 Pro use ACI to efficiently transfer data between the image sensor and the chip. that was especially important for experiences like dual capture that uses both the front and rear cameras.
John, what else can you tell me about it?
We do all of this while recording great video on the rear camera as well. And the stabilization was especially important here because with dual camera, you're likely to be looking at what the rear camera is framing and making sure you get that in shot, and you don't want to be staring at the front camera or the picture-in-picture or PIP window. You just want to be concentrating on what you're trying to show people. We extended face framing into photography as well. And when you take a selfie, the full square sensor is active. Center stage for photos, it's looking for faces joining the frame, but really what it's looking for is attention. It's looking for people to be intentionally in the shot. And when it does see that, it automatically adjusts. So if you've got two people, it'll automatically zoom to fit you perfectly. Three or more people, it can automatically rotate the capture to landscape while you're still holding the phone vertically. You need this thing we call hysteresis delay. Basically, the system needs to be responsive, but not twitchy. So if somebody walks by in the background, you don't want the camera overreacting, but when your friend leans into the shot, you want it to adjust smoothly. Basically, the camera just has to get it.
There's something you brought up that, we had heard about action mode coming to the selfie camera, which is exciting. And I think you guys frame it that way so nobody has to think about the work that it's doing to keep you in frame, to keep things stable. But we also didn't hear much about the details of how that's working. Like, I know we never had any sort of physical stabilization on the selfie camera before, but it sounds like there's a lot of different work that you guys have done. Can you just tell me a little bit more about how it's actually doing that stabilization? The fact that we never turn on action mode, is just there automatically, is really interesting. Is there anything else you can say about how it works?
Yeah, so as Megan pointed out, there is the hardware stabilization, but to do the action mode style stabilization, it is the exact same idea of action mode on the rear camera, where if you think of the video frame as sort of this big plate with this large overscan, and you're shooting video in sort of the center of that plate, that allows us to then in real time do this super cinematic quality stabilization. And the real trick for us was not just doing that on one camera at a time, but doing that on two cameras at a time. And that's why the big unlock for this was the Apple Silicon this year, to give us the amount of processing to do that. Because when we thought about building this great new experience, dual camera was actually one of our sort of like guiding lights. And, we've seen dual capture type things in the App Store for a while, but they all just felt not quite right because the stabilization wasn't there, or just the integration wasn't there. And so we wanted to be able to say, hey, yeah, you can do this dual capture thing. You can just turn it on. You don't have to think about it. We'll automatically stabilize everything. If you're sort of doing a dual capture while you're moving around relatively quickly as well, you can super stabilize the rear camera as well. And then we'll sort of gently sort of like keep your head in the frame. It won't be kind of like the full-on center stage thing, but we'll just sort of keep you sort of framed enough so that you can concentrate more on what's happening on the other side of the camera than where your head is.
Well, the results are fantastic because I haven't thought about it since I got it. I just look at the results and I'm happy with it. So I think that's probably your objective with so many of these features. This is also one of the times that we've seen the most, kind of like machine learning brought into something kind of active that the users can see it happening as it makes decisions about how to frame the background. Some other camera manufacturers out there are fully integrating AI into their cameras in ways that I don't expect Apple to, and you guys definitely haven't. Just in general, like broad strokes, how do you guys think about things like AI and machine learning and how they can integrate into the iPhone camera system?
I think it's worth sort of thinking about them slightly differently, and that if you, for the sake of this discussion, let's call sort of machine learning this big sort of statistical evaluation of sort of understanding sort of what's going on in the image. And AI, the way it's sort of often used today, is this idea of something generative, sort of like creating something out of nothing.
Sure. They're really broad terms, so.
we go back to that idea of a photograph is something that actually happened. Now, this is not us saying that art shouldn't happen. If you want to go take a photograph and add stuff to it and edit it and things like that, that's totally your call. But our duty to you is to make sure that when you take a photograph or a video on an iPhone, that the things that are in the scene were actually there. And so if you look at this in the context of the center stage front camera, we use a lot of machine learning to sort of understand things like gaze. So if I'm taking a selfie video, or if I've got got a group of people together taking a selfie, and someone just kind of walks past in the background and does a quick kind of like look over the shoulder to see what we're doing, we don't want the camera to automatically react and go frame that person. We want it to go like, oh, that person is actually like looking at the camera and they're kind of dwelling on it, so it looks like they're in the frame. That's all sort of machine learning, which is all about understanding what is happening in the scene and being able to sort of then do processing based on it. In terms of generative, the way that generative is kind of like mostly used today, which is inventing things, either telling stories off a prompt or creating an image off a prompt, we think that's great. We just don't think it's a photograph.
Something else I was kind of wondering in general is it's not brand new, but you do have a new photographic style this year, the one that called Bright, which I've been testing out. I do love the approach you guys have had by bringing in photographic styles. It kind of still gives a in-house solution, so you're getting Apple colors out of each image, but people have the opportunity to tweak them a bit through the pipeline. Overall, like when you guys are evaluating the look of an image, what attributes are you looking for? Like what sort of constitutes a great iPhone photo when you're creating looks like the new photographic style?
Well, so underneath the photographic styles, before we even get to there, let's just kind of talk about the standard image that comes out of an iPhone. And for that, the thing that we're looking for is perceptual reality. So as close as possible to the thing that your eyes actually saw. But the thing that's been true about photography for at least 170 years, going back to Roger Fenton in the 1850s, is stylization. People want to sort of take the photograph and then make it uniquely theirs. And that's really what styles is all about. And there are the undertones and there are the creative styles. The undertones, which the new undertone Bright is one of, that's all about how you want to see primarily skin color represented. And the thing that we know, and the way we know this is we've actually done a ton of worldwide research. We've sent folks out into the field with prototypes. We've done focus groups in a bunch of different countries. And the thing that we've come to understand is there is no universal notion of what I want a photograph of me to look like. This is a personal choice. It could be informed societally. It could be age-related. It could just be like how I'm feeling that way. And what we want to do is give folks the ability to start with a photograph that is an accurate kind of perceptual photograph of them, but then be able to put whatever kind of version of themselves on top of that. Now, instead of like sending people in to edit, we also wanted to just say like, hey, you can skip straight to the good part and say, hey, I want to set Bright as my default because in general, that's the way that I want my skin to be rendered in photographs that I take. But we also retain all of that data. So in the similar way that if you had a raw file, that you can always either go back to the sort of original kind of untouched image, or you can just go and change styles. So none of these decisions have to be baked in or permanent.
There's one new feature I don't know if this is a question, but want to compliment you on is in iOS 26, you now have the, I don't know what to call it, but smudge detection on when there might be a dirty lens. And I just want to say that I appreciate little details like that because year after year, that's kind of my number one tip to most users is that your lens might be the reason that your photos are blurry, is there might be a little bit of grease or makeup on the end of it. So I just think it was really nice to see that kind of integrated from a system level, that something happening in the physical world on the outside of your camera might be affecting the final image.
Thanks. It does go back to, as you point out, like sort of one of the biggest things that you can do for most people, that they're just like, why do your photos look better than mine? I'm like, well, give me your iPhone and let me clean your lens for
Yeah.
you, and then we're good to go. And so then we were just like, iPhone could tell you that instead of like having to have Tyler or John wandering around with a lens cleaning cloth.
No, I absolutely love that little detail. And that was kind of all I had for you guys today. But huge compliments on the new phone. I'm going to be pushing it much further than we even get the chance to talk about today. I didn't even get to ask you about things like Apple Log 2 and some of the other many more professional features that are out there that I'm going to be talking about more on the channel. But thanks again for joining me, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always fun to chat.